If I tell you right now that reading is good, as you probably have heard from years of growing up, or from your parents, from your teachers, will you agree with me? Most likely right. Most of us know that reading is good for us. So why is it that we aren't always carrying around books with us like it was something that's supposed to be good for us? I'm really not here to criticize you for not doing so. I myself think that not everybody has to do that to prove your love of reading. Let me tell you about my experience with reading. Growing up, I always loved it. I used to read magazines, fairy tales, comic books back when I was a kid. Back in secondary school, I would read novels and science books. Then came the part of my so-called reading career in grade 7, when I was stepping up a quantity of books I was reading at the same time. I became extremely selective with what I read. Actually, to tell you the truth, being selective with what I read is just a fancy way to cover up the real thing that happened back then, which is me wasting a lot of time questioning whether or not I should pick up a book. Let me just describe you exactly what was happening back then. I stood in front of stack of books like this, reading well. If I reading books, is that gonna help me solve my homework? No, I'm not gonna read it. And I called that being selective because I thought that was good, but eventually I realized that I was not being productive at all. And I started asking me myself why, because I was doing something what was supposed to be good, which is being selective, but I ended up wasting time instead of actually getting any reading done. So after years of observing and reflecting on what I did back, I have come to notice something in teenagers that I would like to call is skepticism in the power of girding. What is skepticism in the power of reading to me? I would like to define my definition of skepticism in reading as having doubts in the in the process of reading, or thinking of reading as a means to solve an immediate problem. So for this type of skepticism of reading or over practical approach to reading, I classify these people into two types. The first type are the people who never really give reading a chance because they cannot possibly think of how reading can help them in any way. The second type people are those who have actually have fierce beliefs in the power books, but after not seeing themselves getting instant results, they give up and their belief is shattered into strong disbelief. For both these types, there's some mindsets that they are going to have to make. In order to break free from these limited beliefs about books. Now let us get started with the first type, the practical. These people are those who spend time sitting to convince themselves that reading cannot possibly help them gather in any way. They cannot see how reading this book is going to make their lives immediately better. For example, if having this really difficult math homework and reading this book is not gonna help, and then I'm not gonna do it. That is the mindset of people in type 1. Now, if I ask these people if they think reading is good, they're really likely to say yes. They do think that reading is good, but easier said than done. They only look at the short-term benefits of reading, which is how it is going to benefit them today, tomorrow, or a day after tomorrow, to which they do not see any possibility of what they read changing anything. Don't get me wrong, though these people are not lazy. In fact, on the bright side, they may be someone who is extremely resource oriented and particular with what they spend their time on. However, as they think of reading as a means to solve an immediate problem, or simply consider as temporary motivation, there's the questioning the process of reading. If it doesn't actually help them. For example, to solve the homework. I have been in this position, to be honest with you. And why you may think that? Well, it is so hard to convince these people to maybe just give reading a chance. It's really not that easy. Let me just play how a conversation with this type of person would go. You would tell them, why is it so hard just to try reading and see if it works for you? Them, with their super logic, would say, will you study literature to get bad at math? Obviously, you're not going to study literature to get better math, right? And that is their logic. If it doesn't help me solve my homework, if it doesn't help me get better at school immediately, why should I waste hours on that? So now moving on to the next time, which is disbelievers. These people are interesting as in they used to have strong beliefs in books. They used to be the ones like me standing here right now telling you reading is good. But the thing is, after reading several times, is not seeing themselves turning into genius overnight. They give up. They lose their motivation. For this type people, the problem really isn't with the expectations for results, because as leaders, we should always expect an outcome to come out of everything what we do. The problem is with the degree of expectation that they set for their results. When you read something and you expect results is come overnight, and reality doesn't turn out that way, it can be extremely discouraging and ever frustrating. So therefore, no matter how strong your initial belief in books were, you eventually just stop believing in them, and then you refuse to buy. What you consider a package of waste of time and energy, along with the complimentary gifts of disappointment, ever again. And that is how we arrive at the second type of people. Now, for both types, there is some realization that they are going to have to make in order to break themselves free from this limited belief. The problem with type 1 is that they limit themselves to only what they think can happen. For For example, if I'm reading this book, I need to know exactly how it's going to benefit me, and I need to see that scenario. But really, among many things that we can predict, what happens to our failures and especially opportunities is not one of them. You should not be overly worried about how what you read today will benefit you tomorrow and be overly attached to how exactly that will play out because we don't know. I know that right now you have the energy, the time, the curiosity to learn. I don't know if that also holds true for the future. Back when I was having this problem as well, there was a story that really inspired me to um, maybe step out of my comfort to start this fairy out. It's a story about Steve Jobs I came across. So we know who Steve Jobs, right? Hello iPhone users. He is a CEO and founder of Apple. He is one of the champions that we know. We know that he runs Apple. So basically, he does what has to do with information technology and business. So we would expect a person like this to be stuffed with knowledge from business books and books on IT. But back in university, he took a calligraphy class just for fun. Calligraphy is basically, to put it simply, the art of writing that you can see in cards and birthday cards. You know what I'm talking about? He took it just for fun, and personally for me, I would never imagine a way calligraphy would have with someone who is doing business and information in technology. And maybe he didn't know how what would help either. But eventually, his knowledge on calligraphy is that the knowledge that he took from that calligraphy class came into use when he was designing the interface for the MacBook. This story really inspired me to maybe try out and stop doubting so much of whether or not what I'm learning now will come to into use in the future. And now I've come to learn that every single piece of knowledge that you are taking in will come back to help you one of your life, especially when you least expect it. That is why you should stop doubting so much and worry about whether or not you should learn something.